All right. Court is now in session.
Truth. The word truth, everybody thinks they know what it means, and it means something very special to everybody. I think what most people think it means in this world of scientists and agnostics is the world as if we aren't here in the world. All right, like what's really true is there's an earth here, and there's space, and there's gravity, and that's what's true to most people.
Baseline reality.
Yeah, like if a tree falls in the forest, that's what's true. The forest and the
Right.
trees.
Like some things are inherently good, or some are evil, bad.
Well, now we're getting into more perspective truth. That's what, you could say something's either true or it isn't. And most people think, whatever they think is evil and good, they think is true. Now using that term of the word, you're talking about perspectives. It's easy to see that in cultures, what's true here is not necessarily true over there. What's good here is maybe bad over there.
Like eating dogs.
Right. Yeah. So you could say it's true that eating dogs is wrong, but is it if it's okay in a different country? So you can start to see that the truth isn't necessarily a stable reality, but more perspectives. And then you can start to see that all truth is just perspectives. I really like how Alan Watts said even the scientists believing that the world is made of matter is a philosophical perspective.
Yeah, the world as we know it now is based on our understanding of it, which always changes, based on our ability to observe and the tools we have, the methods of observing. So before X-rays existed, did they not exist, or we just didn't have the technology?
Right. Like if someone were to say, like, I can take a picture of your bones without your skin, they would be a crazy madman and they would be spitting nothing but lies.
Right. But now it's something that's happening.
Right.
So what other thing, like, is it easy? Can we assume that we have discovered everything?
We can never assume that.
That would be ridiculous, right?
Right.
I mean, but that's almost how we feel comfortable, feeling like this is the world and this is how we know it.
Yeah.
And it's just this way so we could feel safe, build some security, But
yeah. I used to categorize the hemispheres of the brain as the right hemisphere is the creative hemisphere and the left hemisphere is like the rational hemisphere. But now I've come to believe that the left hemisphere is just the hemisphere that labels stuff to make us feel comfortable. Yeah, it's all, our idea of the world is just here to make us feel comfortable and secure in it so that we can stop focusing on it and focus on other things. So yeah, truth is just your comfortable perspective that you've accepted and the society's accepted as a whole.
Yeah, we're obsessed with making sense of things so we can go into our day-to-day lives and feel like we've got it all figured out. And
well, yeah, of course, because otherwise the world's just a chaotic mess of like confusing, irrational things. I remember seeing like a bunch of cows standing in the field staring at a soda can, and they were all like so like perplexed. We need to make sense of our world and organize it so that we can navigate it. Because what we're supposed to do in the world is navigate, problem solve, and propagate.
Yeah, and then we give that power of figuring things out to certain people, and we place them on a pedestal, and we just look to them for the knowledge that we should really be seeking out ourselves, because it's every person's duty to figure things out and educate themselves.
I feel that way personally. I think that what's one of the main reasons we're here is to see the majesty and the beauty in the world through our own lens, and so as to add to all the perspectives that culminate the world. If you just adopt someone else's perspective, you haven't really added to the world. But that's my personal perspective that I like to think of as one of the main purposes of living a life. Other people would give life a different purpose, and that's fine.
Yeah. Well, at some point, you have to have beliefs, because even a belief by definition is choosing a perspective and laying that as your foundation upon which other perspectives can be built.
Right. In order to have any kind of perspective to the world and navigate it, you have to have beliefs. Therefore, you already certainly have beliefs.
I've heard that people consider themselves open-minded, but people also, they don't question the beliefs that they really hold true and that they haven't even thought of questioning, like why they're here, their existence, the country they're from. Like you see a lot of like nationalism and religion and different identities that people like to associate with because it makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I would have no initial problem with that, people just adopting their own beliefs and not questioning their own beliefs, except for the fact that we don't come into this world as discerning individuals. We come into this world as children that don't know any better. And so they say children are sponges. Well, between the ages of 2 and 8, children absorb everything that they're given without any discernment. And we were children, and so we did the same thing. And we absorbed what we were given, and we used that as our foundation to build language and social structure and our ideas for like authority and parents on top of that. And we didn't get to choose how we did that. So everyone needs to, in hindsight, understand what they were programmed with and decide whether or not they want to keep that programming or rewrite it in their own idea of what should be.
Right. It's like our environment, our parents, our upbringing was like a floppy drive of information, and it was downloaded into us. And there was malware, there were viruses, and now we're consumed with everything on that disk. Is like that becomes our baseline belief system.
Yeah, we're preloaded with stuff that we didn't choose, and it may be malware and it may be toxic. I'm sure there are people raised in nurturing, wholesome households where there's nothing they want to change. But in this day and age, you need to be aware with what you're programmed with because it's on a subconscious level. You're not currently aware that you need to do introspection to see what you believe and if you agree with that belief that was programmed into you or not.
Yeah, questioning your beliefs is difficult.
Yeah.
It's like you see with sports teams. For one, not that watching sports is good or bad necessarily, but familiar, like, you know, you adopt your parents, the way that they look at their politics. You join the politics, sports team, professions,
values, virtues, everything they hold dear, you adopt initially, which is fine. But let's say you understand that you need to research what was I programmed with and do I agree with that? While you're doing that, you can kind of see how you're programmed and see that you've been programming yourself after that and take a note as to whether or not you program yourself with positive things that are helping you or toxic things that are hurting you.
Right, because when we're kids, we don't have the ability to realize our parents are not these perfect gods. So we're going to listen to everything and emulate. So they say monkey see, monkey do. You can tell your kids whatever you want. But if you're doing differently, they're going to pick up on that. So you have to be about what you're about, you know? Don't just talk about it, be about it.
Well, that leads to being, true to your word. You want to be impeccable with your word because if you're not, that's not only going to hurt other people's vision of you, it's going to hurt your vision of yourself. Being impeccable with your word is one of the key things to living a healthy, sustainable life and to being a person that takes yourself seriously. If you're not impeccable with word, you're not going to be very good at habit setting.
You can't be confident. You can't trust yourself.
Right.
You have really no foundation.
Yeah. You could say, well, I'm going to go work out at the gym tomorrow. But then when you wake up, you'd be like, I don't really want to. And the fact that you said, I'm going to go work out at the gym tomorrow means nothing because you don't value your word.
Right. So then when you say, I'm going to go get that new job or I'm going to get that new girlfriend or I'm going to get whatever it is you want in life.
Then you'll listen to yourself because you said it and you value your own word. You can see people that do value their own word and when they say something, they mean it. Their word is their bond. And it's hard not to look up to a person like that because they have integrity.
Yeah. If they say they're going to be there at 7 o'clock, they're there at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Or a little earlier. They're never late.
Generally, this is someone everyone looks up to and wants to emulate, and rightfully so, because it leads to a happy, healthy life where you achieve everything that you set out to, and you can work with yourself instead of against yourself.
And it's the only thing we actually have control over. So if we want to have comfort about knowing something about the world, we should know ourselves. because you can't know anything really else.
Yeah.
Anything else.
That's one of the
really.
foundational habits that you need to establish, especially if you're going to start working on yourself in any fashion, even when it comes to monitoring what you believe.
And it really all starts with what we believe.
Yeah.
You're right, exactly. So you have to figure out where you're being delusional and being brutally honest. You got to be humble. You got to like come to yourself and be like, okay, I've been saying I was going to do A, B, and C. I've not done A, B, and C. I sometimes even tell people I do A, B, and C, but I'm not true to myself. If you're not true to yourself, you'll just crumble on the inside anyways. You can't hold up those lies forever. So
yeah, it's going to feel really bad too. You're not going to be consistent.
Terrible.
You're not going to be happy with yourself if you're trying to do something, that is.
So that comes back to the truth.
And what is true? True is what you perceive to be true.
Right.
And that's not hard to figure out what you perceive to be true. There's several methods to do this.
We could say, go walk outside right now. Mm-hmm. And you could say, hey, it's cold outside. And I'm like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I got my tank top on, feeling great.
Yeah.
And it's definitely cold outside. But you know, that kind of stuff where like you're in a room with someone and like, oh man, someone turn on the air. It's hot in here. And like, oh, I'm cold over here. Both are true, right?
Yeah.
Both are experiencing the truth. Totally opposite. So everyone is arguing about the truth and they have a different perspective, and somewhere around the circle of perspectives, which are basically infinite, you have a new perspective from a different position.
Yeah. If you can understand that, you can start to see that everyone's perspective is extremely valuable, and then you can become something that I deem like a perspective collector. You can collect all the perspectives and like incorporate them all. But that's kind of like
I collect perspectives.
High-end stuff.
Beneficial seems to be what I've been implementing most recently with perspectives, because sometimes, especially when I used to smoke a lot, it was easy for me to get way out there with perspectives. But then it's like, okay, can I apply this to my life? Is it beneficial?
Yeah. Stuff you can incorporate with your life to make yourself
like
better.
The conspiracies.
Yeah.
Does it matter if the Illuminati run the planet, or if there's some elite organization, or if the government's against us, or if we're on a slave planet, or if the Anunnaki are real and humans have been enslaved for millions of years? How does that benefit me, though?
That's a very good question. I know a lot of people that are very open-minded, smoke a lot of pot, and talk about conspiracy theories, about organizations and stuff. I'll tell you, all the perspectives that we adopt and we're attracted to are beneficial. Depends on what we want. Now, if you want to feel like you're not accountable for anything, and you're a victim of this world, you're going to be drawn to perspectives that victimize you. Like there's an alien conspiracy where they're like stealing up people and there's nothing I can do. That's going to feel very appealing to you.
Yeah. Oh, to tie in with victims, absolutely. Because it gives away your power. And I used to do that all the time. I wanted to figure out who deserves the blame for why the world is the way it is. Mm-hmm. So I can finally convince and figure out, how do I show this to the rest of the world so we can all hop on board and then rise with pitchforks and go find these people and make them pay for the suffering that they've caused everybody, when I cause my own suffering when I'm not impeccable with my word. And that's the only suffering that I really endure.
Unfortunately, the villain you're looking for was you the whole time.
I'm looking in the mirror.
And that wasn't easy to look at. So it felt better to find that government conspiracy, Illuminati people that were after you.
Oh yeah, it was like
beneficial perspective.
It's like wanting to lose weight but being addicted to pizza. You know, I mean, so blaming the pizza or my genetics or something else. Instead of blaming the pizza, it's like, oh, you blame your genetics or you blame some other reason as to why you can't lose weight, but it's not the pizza.
That perspective is attractive because it takes that focus off of you, and that looking at yourself as the villain or the flawed one is uncomfortable. So it's a perspective that gives you comfort.
Yeah, you've heard of groupthink?
Groupthink.
Groupthink.
Really?
Like, so like if you ask most people how they eat, most people think they eat relatively healthy. And I remember a girl the other day even told me, she's like, yeah, I eat pizza and some other things. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like we mentioned health foods and pizza was one of them because we want to believe, we're like, oh, it's not that bad, right?
Yeah.
And we believe that because we have been fed this industrial food from flour, and rich flour in particular, super inflammatory. It's in everything. It's super cheap. It's very addictive.
Mhm.
And we're all addicted to it as a society, for sure,
For sure.
across the globe.
That reminds me of there's these Buddhist tenets, and one of them is that I will not consume such and such and such and such. And then I heard people interpret that as like, oh, you can consume it. You're just not supposed to get intoxicated. So obviously they interpreted it the way they wanted to interpret so they could still use the drug they wanted to use.
I've done that too.
Yeah.
It didn't work.
You can interpret things the way you want to suit your needs. And if you're not ready to give up something, you will rationalize a way to use it.
Yeah, the whole point of using intoxicants is to be intoxicated.
Yeah, you wouldn't use it just, oh, I like the taste. Yeah, everyone knows that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, I just like the smell of cocaine. I like cocaine. I like the way it smells.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can see from that we obviously rationalize the world and perceive the things we want to perceive to suit our needs. Every perspective we have is a helpful perspective, but we can really understand what we want. We can start to adjust our perspectives to that end.
So it's a huge burden is lifted when you realize, oh, there doesn't have to be a truth. I don't have to fight for this position of they're wrong and I'm right, and damned if it's going to be some other way.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge burden because you can find yourself thinking that you know what the truth is and feeling very judgmental and closed-minded towards other people and feel that separation from others when you feel like you know what the truth is. And the burden is lifted when you realize that we're all just having perspectives, and that ties you to other people and makes you feel more connected and whole. But it's a double-edged sword in that when you understand there's no truth, now all of a sudden you're living in a world without a firm foundation. Nothing solid anymore. You understand now that nobody has any idea what's going on. They just adopt perspectives. And so you let go of your firm ground and you start to float in this void of chaos
really
while
quantum.
Coming towards other people. And it takes a mature soul to be able to adopt a truthless truth, just a perspective as truth. Because it's like saying, I'm okay letting go of the firm ground. So there's some bravery to it, but there's also benefits to it. Everything, paradoxically, is both wonderful and horrible. If you can understand that
duality.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling. It takes a lot of contemplation, peace, acceptance to get to the point where you're able to look at things without needing it to be true.
That really seems to be like the real golden nugget, or like the buried treasure within all of this, is by adopting these beliefs or perspectives, you get to have and know peace. Because there's no more, your ego can't fight for this correctness because there is none. So it kind of just gives itself up.
Yes. Yeah. You're never going to stop identifying as something, but you can stop feeling so certain and rigid about it, and you can relax and let go, let your focus haze out and let everything happen and unfold. Whereas needed to control things, you get very tight and tense. You can relax and breathe and be. I think the main goal of most spiritual practices is to attain a peaceful, equanimous state of consciousness. Most people think the meaning of life is happiness, but happiness is directly relative to strife. So it's not sustainable, although peacefulness is sustainable.
Yeah, and these are just perspectives we're sharing, which may or may not be true or beneficial to someone listening, because maybe they have a point to prove and need to feel right. Maybe they're not done being right and have a point to prove.
The only thing I know is that I know nothing.
It takes a lot to admit that. With information changing all the time, with new discoveries always being added, it's hard to be certain. But I feel, and I use the word feel specifically, because I feel like I know what's right based on the feeling itself, the intuition. I'm starting to feel through life and have this internal guidance system direct my actions. And I'll have like a thought pop in, but only if I'm at peace. If I'm distracted externally, where I'm worried about the past or the future and I'm not in the now, the intuition that comes in is greatly distorted.
Yeah. It's either greatly distorted or blocked entirely.
Right.
Yeah, and you don't feel it. But I really like how someone said, I forget who, that this state of consciousness has to be held kind of like a butterfly in your hands. Not too tight, not too loose. Kind of just right. Just the right amount of pressure. Takes a lot of practice and a lot of contemplation and feeling to get right. But the end result, state of awareness and peacefulness and guidance is well worth the effort.
Yeah. You have to end up crushing some of those butterflies and then letting them some go.
Yeah.
Kind of get between the cracks.
Well, you got to understand what a tight grip is and what a too loose grip is in order to find the middle ground. So you have to experience all extremes of your grip on what's real and what's not.
Yeah, you got to let the pendulum swing to either side to have it fall back in the middle somewhere.
Someone who has OCD needs to let their house get messy. Someone that has a messy house needs to clean up and make everything spotless so they can find that middle ground. This is just an example, a metaphor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is great. We're getting better at this. And I am able to help myself so much because it's like sharing all of this is really making me work on my beliefs. So if I'm going to talk about something, naturally it makes sense to want to believe that, because why would I just talk about stuff I don't believe? You know?
This is one of the forms. I would say that one of the ways to take a inventory of your beliefs and work on them is journaling, meditation, or open discussion and intellectualism in any kind of form, including this one.
Yeah, you get a lot of those at work. People talk about certain subjects, mostly complaining and gossiping, which goes back to being impeccable with your word. Gossip is poison. And back to even further, when I was talking about being downloaded with malware or these viruses, in the Four Agreements, they talk about that, where gossip is a virus. And you're talking about someone based on someone else's perspective of a situation. And then you're never boosting them up and talking great about
Gossip
them.
is always negative talk about others. And most people gossip in order to connect. They connect with other people. So the need is, I want to connect with you.
Yeah,
but the tool is, let's talk negatively about someone else to connect with each other. Now, you can connect with somebody without talking negatively to somebody else easily. It's just almost cathartic tool that people use because people are in a negative headspace. And to join them in their negative headspace is to perpetuate that negativity. And now they have a habit of using negativity to connect with others, which is not healthy, obviously.
Yeah. It's just low vibrational.
You could easily do the same thing, talking positively about others, talking positively about yourself or your passions. There's lots of alternatives.
You could tell when people are having that discussion and they want you to chime in, like, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? I'm like, oh, aren't they amazing? And they're like, everyone's like, scared. And they kind of, it drops the ball because they're looking for another person to chime in. Right. I'm guilty of it. I've gossiped my fair share.
Yeah, but just like I was saying with the clean, messy house, you got to experience the extreme to understand what's not helpful. So all these experiences that are toxic and unhelpful help you understand what is helpful. So in a way, the unhelpful experiences were helpful.
You need them.
Yeah.
Back to the truth. The things that we consider bad end up being good, and the good times create weak men create bad times create strong men.
Strong men create good times. Yeah, it's a circle. Yeah.
So there's no good and bad. Bad creates good creates bad.
It's all the same thing, just moving in a harmony together, like the tides.
Whenever there's a tragedy, people come together and then they love each other more. So this place really is perfect.
It really is, from my perspective.
We'll leave it there.
Hmm.
Excellent.